Great news. There's a quick way you can save money. Switch to Geico. Geico could help you get great coverage at a great price. And it only takes 15 minutes to see if you could save 15% or more on car insurance. Go to geico.com today and see how much you could save.
Coming up on today's NFL Live, we follow along as Patriots tight end Rob Gronkowski goes diving with sharks without a cage, if you notice it there. And with training camp upon us, we look at top offseason storylines. All right, we're going to bust out our matter meter to tell you how impactful they will be during the regular season. So lots of fun debates coming up here on the show. Welcome to NFL Live on this Friday. Got my friend Jeff Darlington here,
Hello.
Darren Woodson. Guess you're my friend too, Dave. I'm Dianna Russini. You know, guys, it's coming. Can you feel it? Well, it's already here, of course. That in Baltimore. Real football is back. We're talking Joe Flacco, Lamar Jackson, even a little RG3 out on the field together for day 2 of the Ravens practice. The quarterback situation in Baltimore, maybe one of the most interesting quarterback situations going on in the league, especially with Lamar Jackson right there. So a lot of conversation here leading into camp over the last few weeks, and we are finally here, guys. Lamar Jackson perhaps putting a little pressure on their starter, Joe Flacco. So, Jeff, let's start with you. How do you see this?
You want to start with me? You want the rational perspective from Damian? Or do you want the irrational perspective from me?
I want to talk about how you see this playing out.
And you because just call me Damian. You know that it's Darren.
Oh, we did that already?
It's all
wait,
good.
we start over.
You know, that's what Jack Collinsworth did last year. He called DeMarco DeMarcus.
Exactly.
Yeah, except I'm much better friends with you than that. Anyway, Damian. Look, here's what happened. Here's what I think in this situation. I think Lamar Jackson is going to eventually take this starting job because of the pressure he is going to apply through the fan base on this organization. I truly do. I think that he is electric. Joe Flacco is not. I understand, and you're going to give me the more rational perspective, Darren, but it is a situation where I feel the Tebow thing coming on. I feel like this market is thirsting for an electric, dynamic player at that position, and Lamar Jackson is he.
Yeah, and I think he will provide that, but not at the quarterback position, and probably won't happen this year at all. I think he will see situational plays, maybe at the quarterback position, maybe at the wide receiver position. But this position right now, this is not going to be a quarterback battle. And we just talked to the old chief, Bill Polian, yesterday on the set. He said the same thing. This will not be a quarterback battle. This will be Joe Flacco's job the entire season, unless, and this is where it may change, unless they get to a point during this season where they're out of the playoffs, there's nowhere to go, or Flacco gets hurt, and then you'll see Jackson come in. But
this just sounds
I'm a believer Flacco's going to be the guy.
This sounds like, as the reporter going into the locker room, hearing the coach speak. He's saying Bill Polian. Of course Bill says that. That's what Bill would say as a GM too. And I'm just saying, Diana, we've seen it time and time again. You go through a season and they say, no, it's not going to happen. And then all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's called Cleveland. They did that. No, it's not going to happen. We're riding, with DeShone Kizer.
Time and time again.
Things change all the time.
But you're talking about this.
I'm in the camp of I think Joe Flacco is going to be the starter, remain the starter. I think he's going to have one of the best seasons of his career because of the pressure. The last time we saw him have pressure on him, he was in a contract year. He went out there, won a Super Bowl. I think this is what Joe Flacco needs. He needs the hype.
Push, yeah.
And who knows what RG3 could perhaps do out there. I'm sorry, those are my DC roots coming out a little bit. But
you know how I feel about RG3. I think that, but I would say that Lamar Jackson right now is the guy who's got the.
I just can't believe we're having this conversation. Like, you actually think that early on in this season that Lamar Jackson's going to be a starter.
He has the type of magnetism that will create the type of uproar that's going to apply the pressure.
And I'm sure the fan base is going to create that uproar. But it's going to be about two things: coaching staff and John Harbaugh, who's a veteran coach.
Right.
Ozzie, who's still involved.
And Eric DeCosta, who's
and that locker room. That's where it's going to be. It's not going to be about the fan base. It's going to be what's happening in that locker room.
Well, if they're smart, that's what they keep it to. They don't listen to the fans.
We'll see.
Joe Flacco's relationship with Lamar Jackson has been really interesting to keep an eye on, right? Because remember, Lamar said he hadn't talked to Joe. Well, today, now that camp is in session, they do talk. But Our Nation reporter that covers the Baltimore Ravens for us, Jamison Hensley here, he's worth a follow for sure, tweeted out that Joe Flacco was asked whether the questions about Lamar Jackson will get annoying throughout the season. He said, no, I don't because I think we're going to win and we're not going to hear about it. Flacco said, that's probably a good way to get around it, right?
That's a good approach. That's true. If they win, it's not going to be a problem.
The experience that he brings and the confidence that he can bring to this position, you have to figure he can rule it out that he's not going to feel the pressure of Lamar Jackson. But at some point, maybe they may make a decision to put him in because he's not getting it done. Where do you see Lamar Jackson perhaps coming in to become a starter? What week do you think for the Ravens do you see this maybe happening? Maybe.
They have to be out of the playoffs.
Darren thinks it's 2020.
That's it?
And look, if they got to be out of the playoffs, or Joe Flacco goes down with injury, then you'll see Mark. I just don't see Jackson early in this season. I don't see him coming in week 7, week 6. And I'm not saying they may lose 3 straight games throughout the season. They're going to stick with their veteran quarterback, Joe Flacco, because that's what they know. Until they get out of the running, then you will see a possibility of Jackson coming in.
Can I play the irrational fan real quick? What happens if in preseason Lamar Jackson, albeit against maybe inferior competition, just balls out?
You just said it.
What if he just looks electric? What if he looks
I hate that.
like Michael Vick?
He will look probably better than Michael Vick.
I hear what you're saying as well. I think going into camp, the smart decision for them is going to stick with what they know, a guy they can run their offense. You think Joe Flacco's done? You think he's done? You think, we joke about, is Joe Flacco really kid about?
He's very capable of continuing his success, yes. But you brought up the locker room yesterday when we were talking about this very discussion and keeping the locker room behind you. The older a quarterback gets, the less grip he has on the locker room. I think when you have a younger team, you wind up.
Tom Brady's 40, going to be 41. He's going to
talking about the greatest of all time.
All right, sorry. Well, let's keep Tom Brady out then. I don't think why do you think it is? Josh McCown, he's old. Sorry, Josh, but, he's got a
And Sam Darnold's going to get that job, too, by week 1.
But that's something that Josh McCown's well aware of. Joe Flacco doesn't want to give that job.
There's something to be said about a veteran presence in the locker room. There's something to be said about having that guy. Even though you may have a younger, talented guy that's behind him.
Yeah.
There's something about Sundays when they roll that ball out there, you want your guy that's been there, who's gone through the battles, who's seen Pittsburgh 18 times, not the young rookie who's coming in, who's flashy every once in a while.
I feel you.
And we still don't know. I mean, we're having this conversation. We still don't know. We haven't seen Jackson in action in the NFL.
This isn't like the Dallas times where, we're talking Romo, Prescott situation where we saw what Dak could do. We don't know.
Last thing I'll say on this before you take it. I get it. I'm not saying it's the smart decision to go with Lamar Jackson. I'm just saying that eventually the noise is gonna rise.
No. I think there are Ravens fans out there right there going that Jeff Darlington knows a little something. All right. Meantime, no quarterback competition or situation controversy in Houston. Right? The Houston Texans they report to camp next Wednesday. Their starting quarterback Deshaun Watson expects to be a full go. The second-year quarterback, of course, coming off his knee injury. Well, he talked to the NFL Network about what he expects.
I feel great. I'm getting ready for next week when we report to Greenbrier, and I'm going to be full go.
Like training camp great, or like I'm going to throw 50 touchdowns great?
Both. I'm going 50 plus, so I'm going for it all.
Ooh, we're going to get to that 50-plus conversation in a sec. But first, in terms of Deshaun Watson's health, this is his second knee injury in his career. He, of course, tore that ACL in college, now again here with the Texans. Jeff, what do you know?
I mean, by all means, by everybody you speak to in the Texans organization, there is no qualms. There is no concern. It doesn't feel like the Carson Wentz situation where they're like really nervous about getting him back on the field. Mind you, with very different timelines, but this is still a player who's 8 months out. Torn his ACL in November 2nd. So we're looking at a guy right now that wasn't even wearing a brace on his knee during OTAs. It feels very much like those young legs are doing him justice, and I expect to see him full go throughout training camp.
Probably the part of that interview that stood out the most to all of us here is that we heard him mention that he wants to go for 50 touchdowns this year. He had that smirk on his face. But
yeah, he did.
Guys, that's a lot of touchdowns. That's 3 a game there. You think this can happen, Darren?
Look, there's only two people that have ever done it. That's Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. So, those are hard numbers to get to. And if he can get close, maybe 40, that's a very successful season.
Yeah.
I don't think he gets to 50. I honestly don't. I think they'll manage him a lot differently than what they probably did last year. He's coming off an ACL surgery. And not only that, the defenses have had an entire year to figure out what he does, what his strengths and what his weaknesses are. And right now, we're just sitting here guessing that he's going to have a great season. We have to sit and wait and see how healthy he is, how much he's learned from last year, and how defenses are going to adjust.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And I also look, I'm not, now all of a sudden I'm going to be the rational guy after talking about Lamar Jackson, but I just think it is important. And he was having fun right then. I'm not trying to say that he's putting his expectations too high. I love his confidence. I just think that it's important to also scale back expectations a little bit from the standpoint that he was excellent last year when he was in there. And I think he will continue to be excellent, but just make sure that we allow him to continue his growth at a decent pace and not just expect him to start like
sophomore
Lamar
slump.
Jackson.
Yeah. We're not saying this is going to be a sophomore slump.
No, I don't think it's going to be a slump. No. I just think that he 50 touchdowns.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of touchdowns.
That's certainly one of those headlines where you have to see the interview. 100%. Because at first I was like, wait, why is he putting these expectations on himself? He, of course, I think he just said that with tongue in cheek, but of course he's setting the goal as high as he possibly can, as he should. You actually mentioned other quarterbacks to finish with 50 touchdowns in a season. Of course, Tom Brady did it back in 2007. A 65-yard pass to Randy Moss in Week 17 against the Giants gave him his 50th passing touchdown of the season, making him the first quarterback in history to throw for 50. Brady also ran for a pair of touchdowns that year. We've all seen him run. That gave him 52 passing and rushing scores during New England's 16-0 regular seasons as he continues to practice his rushing touchdowns. We saw his Instagram videos a few weeks ago. Then 6 years later, Brady was answered by Peyton Manning. He began his second season in Denver with a record-tying 7-touchdown performance against the Ravens in Week 1, and man, he did not let up that season. He finished with 55. He added 1 on the ground, finished with a ridiculous 56 scores in 16 games. That's an average, of course, of 3.5 touchdowns per game. I did that math off the top of my head, by the way.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that was in the script.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I should have done this years ago.
Disclaimer. Traveling back in time is physically impossible unless you know how to build a functioning time machine. Then by all means, travel 25 years back in time, switch your car insurance to Geico. You could save a bunch of money. While you're there, please prevent your younger self from wearing that sleeveless tuxedo t-shirt, parachute pants, and glitter high tops to your senior prom. And at long last rectify this horrible crime against nature. Geico is absolved of all liability if you destroy the fabric of time and space.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Back here on NFL Live, we're going to go inside the headlines. We begin with the first headline, which reads, NFLPA announced standstill on anthem rules after the Dolphins report. Here was the statement on the anthem rules from the NFLPA. The NFL and NFLPA, through recent discussions, have been working on a resolution to the anthem issue. In order to allow this constructive dialogue to continue, we have come to a standstill agreement on the NFLPA's grievance and on the NFL's anthem policy. No new rules relating to the anthem will be issued or enforced for the next several weeks while these confidential discussions are ongoing. Just back here in studio here, Jeff Darlington, Darren Woodson here. Jeff, let's begin with you. What are you hearing around the league about this?
Well, that statement, the result of a frenetic 5 hours yesterday evening after the Dolphins, the report came out that the Dolphins could potentially suspend a player for up to 4 games if, in fact, they decided to protest during the national anthem. That, though, not the full story, something that the Dolphins certainly became frustrated by. My conversations with sources saying, in fact, that they have no anticipation of suspending players up to 4 games, but were required to file paperwork with the NFL before the start of camp, just as all other 31 teams will have to do. The Dolphins, because they reported with rookies earlier than most, had to file their paperwork earlier than most. And under the conduct detrimental umbrella within the 9-page statement that they made to the league, they did in fact say that the maximum penalty will be 4 games. So why would they do that? They did it because they have not yet decided what the discipline will be, but by putting that in there, at least they can hedge it back later through discussions. They can't add more to it after the fact. So it's a very complicated situation, one the NFL ultimately realizing that this is going to be the same problem for 31 other teams when they file similar paperwork. Everybody's going to scrutinize it. So they said, hey, let's put this thing on hold. Let's get the toothpaste back in the tube and see if we can't figure this out and roll it out in a better manner.
It's interesting, though, I wonder if there's other teams that have turned in that paperwork yet, because obviously the Dolphins aren't the only ones that had rookies report early. We have teams reporting now, that being the Ravens and the Bears.
We should point out that generally speaking, this also isn't something, this was uncovered by the Associated Press, not something that is necessarily for public dissemination. I'm not saying that there are not other reporters in other markets that were that couldn't certainly get their hands on it, but not necessarily something that they were trying to find, because it's every year teams file this exact paperwork. It's the annual discipline schedule. This year, though, it happened to contain wordage about the national anthem policy, and that's where this became a controversy, unexpected both to the Dolphins and to the NFL. That perhaps where we should say, maybe we should have seen this coming.
That's really good inside information. What was your reaction to the standstill?
Confusion. I mean, I've been confused.
You and everybody else.
Yeah, we've all been confused. I like the way was it Christopher Johnson, the owner of the New York Jets, came out early on, basically said, look, I could care less. If the league's gonna fine my team, I'm still gonna pay those fines for the players. At least there's some leadership involved, and I think that's where the confusion is. The players want leadership. The players want dialogue, and I think that's my biggest issue with this situation, because there is no leadership with this. There's not one person on the league side that's really stood up and guided this thing in the right direction, nor has it been complete dialogue from both the player side and the ownership side.
And Darren, to your point, when you do make a rule, it does require objective measures, and right now, nobody feels like there are objective measures in place to determine exactly what discipline would be for what protest would merit that discipline. A lot of questions left, Diana, hence the reason why we're seeing that joint statement from the NFL and the NFLPA.
Yes. All right. Well, we'll definitely be keeping a close eye on that as we are 48 days away from kickoff. But meantime, the second headline here from the Boston Globe, headline reads this: Julian Edelman reportedly won't fight his 4-game PED suspension. So some news there. So, Jeff, let's start there. Edelman's not fighting this. Why?
Well, first of all, Edelman did feel like he had a good case going into his appeal, and he felt like he did have a chance of winning. But ultimately, he's taken advice from Tom Brady plenty of times throughout his career, and perhaps he saw what Brady went through with his own legal drama and realizes, by the way, how difficult it is to go up against the league when it comes to disciplinary measures in the court of law. We already have a lot of precedent of situations where people have had those types of appeal, not only with the NFL, but in the court of law, snapped back because the collective bargaining agreement does give the NFL quite a bit of power.
Obviously, this hurts the Patriots' offense. How does it change the way they look, at least coming out those first 4 games?
Look, I think Gronk is always going to be their number one target. But when you look at this Patriots offense, Edelman, they missed Edelman last year. Not only did they miss who he did, what he could do in the slot receiver spot as far as matching up one-on-one and beating one-on-one coverage, they missed his toughness. And he's the catalyst. I mean, normally there's a running back who has that physical play, or the tight end really has a lot of the physical play, or is a trash talker or whatnot. This guy right here is the trash talker. He's the one that when he gets going and he gets motivated, the team is looking at him to be that guy that's getting everyone else motivated along with him. So I think Tom Brady's really going to miss him, especially when it's third down and short, because no one can cover him in the slot.
It's a great point, because like Braxton Berrios, a guy that they drafted out of Miami, I actually really like him as a player and think he's the type of wide receiver that could fit a little bit into this mold. But what you said about Edelman's tenacity and his heart and his will, that's something that goes a lot further than maybe people give it credit for. A difficult thing to replace, really almost impossible to
And
replace.
obviously something Tom Brady feeds off. We've seen him in all those videos of how fired up he gets. All right, back here on NFL Live. What moves mattered most in 2017, right? Now that we can look back and think all about it, well, the Eagles, they released Chase Daniel to replace him with Nick Foles. Remember when that happened, guys? We're like, no way this is going to be good for them. Bring in Tony Romo out of the booth. Remember when I said that? That was stupid. Then the Saints drafted both the offensive and defensive rookies of the year, but it wasn't just Alvin Kamara and Marshawn Lattimore. Rookies Marcus Williams, Ryan Ramczyk, man, they were big for New Orleans. And then the Rams, they replaced Jeff Fisher with Sean McVay. And then the Vikings, they found lightning on bottom with Case Keenum, who had signed a 1-year deal and it ran that Viking offense. Keenum wound up with a 2-year deal. He is, of course, over in Denver now, playing there. All right, so right now on ESPN.com, our Nation reporters put together a list of the most important moves for each team during this offseason. So we want to see how much this will actually matter as a whole to the team's success. This is our matter meter, and basically 1 through 10, guys, 10 being like this, it really really matters. Explained it to you. You looked at me like, we get it.
We got
I'm the stupid one.
Thank you.
All right, so let's begin with Jeff, guys. The Vikings, they signed 2 Pro Bowlers this offseason, right? Kirk Cousins and Sheldon Richardson. So give me the matter meter here.
In the words of Billy Bob from Varsity Blues, that's a 10.
It's a 10.
And I say that because there is no more important thing for a team that is potentially destined for the Super Bowl than getting that franchise quarterback. And that is exactly what the Vikings did. They built the Super Bowl team, and then they added the cherry on top. So there is no way that you can say anything in any offseason is more important than this. And we will also throw in Sheldon Richardson in there. By the way, that was a really good pickup. On a 1-year deal, he's going to really be playing for a bigger contract next year, a Pro Bowl player who feels like he got snubbed in this free agency. So it's as important as it gets right here.
Exactly. Not sure if he's still that Pro Bowl player, Sheldon Richardson. We'll see about that. But Kirk, you're right. This team was right there last year. Went to the NFC Championship team. It's Super Bowl or bust for the Minnesota Vikings, and Kirk Cousins has to be the guy that takes them there.
I got one for you, Dianna.
Oh, okay.
Saquon Barkley. How much will he matter to the Giants this season?
I'm going to go one less than a 10. I'm going to go with 9.
9.
And my thought process here is that they've got plenty of weapons in Odell Beckham Jr., Evan Ingram, Sterling Shepard. But I think Eli could use another option there on offense. And listen, the hype surrounding Saquon Barkley is the ultimate, I would say, probably of all the draft picks this past season, probably with the exception of Sam Darnold in terms of the pressure that's on him. But given that they were 26th ranked in rushing last season, they could certainly use a great runner there. And, of course, giving him, Eli Manning, plenty of options, his speed and quickness, ideal for Pat Shurmur-type offense. So that's what I think. You think it's a 10 there? You think I was a little light on that? Because I almost went 10.
You know what? You're right.
I'm right around there. It's close.
Hey, listen, this team has to run the ball. They have to run the ball. They just can't rely on Eli Manning.